Hey guys and welcome! We are super excited for the upcoming Duskmourn House of Horrors set. And we couldn't wait to start brewing our first commander from this set, the Jolly Balloon Man. We are in love with the art of this card and how the amazing artist Campbell White managed to get a Pennywise reference and a Junji Ito reference on the same art. Our commander is very interesting and kinda unique, not for his effect, as he is very similar to Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker, but for the fact that he is a Boros commander. There are many ways this can be built, focusing more on entering the battlefield triggers, leaving the battlefield triggers, or token creation in general. So, without any more delays, let's talk about our commander. The Jolly Balloon Man is a 3-mana Boros commander with haste and pay 1, tap, create a token that's a copy of another target creature you control, except it's a 1/1 red balloon creature in addition to its other colors and types. And it has flying and haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Activate only as a sorcery. The sorcery restriction stops some of the combo potential this commander would have. However, it doesn't stop everything. Before we start talking about how we are going to combo off with this clown, let's talk about some of the creatures we have on this deck. Delny, Streetwise Lookout. Super important with our commander, as she will make sure our balloons have double triggers, as they are 1/1, not to mention the majority of our creatures are indeed 2 power or below. Inspiring Overseer and Spirited Companion. For some draw, also they work well with Delny. This deck is greedy and will consume a lot of resources in order to work, so these cards should help make sure you always have cards in hand. Mentor of the Meek and Welcoming Vampire. For extra draw, like the cards we just mentioned, these ones are meant to be on the board and see the balloons getting into the battlefield. Enduring Innocence is a new card from Duskmourn that is very similar to Mentor of the Meek and Welcoming Vampire. Additionally, as it is a glimmer, when it dies it returns to the battlefield as a non-creature enchantment with the same ability. Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker is the original Johnny Balloon Man. Does not have white as color identity, however he also doesn't have the sorcery speed restriction on the activated ability. He is a very important part of the deck to combo out, or simply gain a lot of value from our creatures. Solemn Simulacrum works wonders with our commander, has he ramps, and also gives draw when we sacrifice it at the end of the turn, if he is a balloon. Skyclave Apparition has a very good enter the battlefield ability, working as a repeatable removal with our commander. Priest of Urabrask gives us mana as enter the battlefield, so making copies of this creature can be the start of some more explosive turns. Imperial Recruiter, to tutor some of the key cards for us to win the game. Port Raiser and Combat Celebrant. With the amount of creatures we have, extra combats are going to be a must. Not to mention, both cards can combo individually with our Lieutenant Kiki-Jiki, and more on that later. Sunspine Links, a 4-mana 5/4 that states players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented, and when Sunspine Links enters, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. Taking into consideration we can create copies of this creature every turn, and the fact that a lot of decks run many non-basic lands, this can win us the game very fast. Do be careful, however, as this is each player. It's also the same reason we are not running that many non-basic lands in our build. Eartha Joe, Frontier Mentor, a 4-mana Boros legendary that allows us to copy our commander's ability for even more enter the battlefields. Baylor is also great on this deck, a 5-mana 5/5 demon with flying and, whenever Baylor attacks or dies, choose one or more. Each mode must target a different player. Target opponent draws 3 cards, then discards 3 cards at random. Target opponent sacrifices a non-token artifact. Baylor deals damage to target opponent equal to the number of cards in their hands. He has a very good enter the battlefield that also triggers on death. With our commander, if you copy him, you will have 2 triggers per turn, dealing a lot of damage, discarding cards, and removing artifacts from the board. Caves of Chaos Adventurer. For the initiative, you will be able to complete Undercity very fast with the amount of copies you can create. Emberwild Captain does kinda the same thing, but with Monarch instead, so even more draw power. One thing we didn't mention is that our commander doesn't work very well with legendary creatures, as the balloons will still be legendary and you will have to sack them. However, we still have 2 legendary creatures we would like to talk about. Atsushi the Blazing Sky, a 4-mana 4/4 flying dragon with when Atsushi the Blazing Sky dies, choose 1. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. Create 3 treasure tokens, transforming the ability of our commander into Impulse Draw or a ramp machine creating 3 treasures. Beza the Bounding Spring, another 4-mana legendary with when Beza the Bounding Spring enters, create a treasure token if an opponent controls more lands than you. You gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you. Create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you. Draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. This enter the battlefield is so strong and will put us back in the game if we can abuse it. With the amount of crazy cards we run and the power of our commander, we need to run some interaction to make sure he stays on the board. Cards like Boda's Charm and Dawn's Truce will make sure our commander will live for another crazy turn. Lyazel's Acrobatics and Eerie Interludes are mass blink abilities that return our creatures at the beginning of the next end step. This will be especially important to dodge Ward Wipes, but also to retrigger all the ETBs and leave the battlefields we have on the board. For artifacts, we run the usual rocks like Sol Ring and Signets. However, we also have a couple of unique cards like Puppet Strings. Not only is super thematic, it also offers the possibility to retrigger our commander and use his ability again. Patriarch's Seal is also similar, but also can be tapped for mana. Idol of Oblivion and Skull Clamp, as these are excellent card draw engines in a deck that creates a lot of 1/1 tokens, as you will see later on. Our main plan is not to necessarily win the game with combat damage, so sacking the balloons shouldn't be a problem. Sundial of the Infinite has a very unique ability that makes the balloons stay on the board, as you can end the turn before beginning of your end step. So the sacrifice trigger will never go to the stack. We also have a lot of cards that trigger whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield. Let's call them the Purphoros type effects. Agatha Instigator, Impact Tremors, Molten Gatekeeper, Purphoros God of the Forge, Witty Roastmaster, War Leader's Call. All do pretty much the same ability, damaging our opponents every time a creature enters the battlefield under our control. As you will see in a moment, this deck can combo a lot, and some of the combos you can pull off will need cards like this to win on the spot. But even without combos, they can win the game by damaging our opponents incrementally every turn. We also have a couple of Sac Outlets and enchantments that help our deck a lot. Goblin Bombardment, for damage to any targets, to deal with some more problematic creatures, planeswalkers, or even our opponents. Ashnod's Altar, for the combo potential and mana possibility. Anointed Procession, to create twice as many balloons, doubling the amount of triggers as well in the process, as more balloons mean more enter the battlefields. Dollmaker's Shop, Porcelain Gallery, a new card from Duskmourn and also a new card type. This enchantment room has 2 parts. You can pay any of the mana costs above and later unlock the other room by paying the mana cost of the room you didn't pay for when you cast it. So, you can pay 2, creating white 1/1 artifact creature toys whenever you attack with 1 or more non-toy creatures, in this case our balloons. Or you can pay 6 to make the base power and toughness each equal to the number of creatures we control, and with the amount of tokens we can make, in the right scenario this is just little damage, as you are transforming 1/1 balloons into 7/7 hasty flyers out of nowhere. Now for the more important section of our video. Let's check some combos and ways to win with this clown fiesta. Let's start with the easy ones. Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker and Jealous Conscripts. Activate Kiki-Jiki by tapping it, creating a token copy of Zealous Conscripts. The Zealous Conscripts token enters the battlefield, untapping Kiki-Jiki. Repeat. All of the tokens Kiki-Jiki makes have haste, so you can create infinite tokens and attack for little damage. The same can be done when using Kiki-Jiki and Coercive Recruiter. We also have Kiki-Jiki and Combat Celebrant. Activate Kiki-Jiki by tapping it, creating a token copy of Combat Celebrant with haste. Proceed to your combat step. Declare the Combat Celebrant copy as an attacker, choosing to exert it as it attacks. The Combat Celebrant copy triggers, untapping all other creatures you control and causing you to get an additional combat phase after this one. Repeat. Alternatively to this version, we also have Kiki-Jiki and Port Razor. Another enchantment we have is Splinter Twin. This and Kiki were a modern deck before, so all of the cards with mentions also combi with the Twin the same way they do with Kiki. You just have to enchant the creatures in question with Splinter Twin instead. Meaning, we have another 4 combos with Splinter Twin and Zealous Conscripts. Tap Zealous Conscripts using Splinter Twin's ability to make a token of itself. Target the original Zealous Conscripts with the token's ETB and tapping it. Repeat to create infinite creature tokens with haste. But also Splinter Twin and Combat Celebrant. Splinter Twin and Port Razor, and Splinter Twin and Coercive Recruiter. Our commander, the Jolly Balloon Man, requires more steps. First, because he has the restriction of having to pay 1 colorless, but also the time restriction of only being able to be activated at sorcery speed. So, how can we bypass these restrictions? We can use the Jolly Balloon Man and Village Bell Ringer and any mana dork. In our case, we have either Palladium Mirror or Mannequin. Use Mannequin's ability for mana to pay for Jolly Balloon Man's ability and tap to create a copy of Village Bell Ringer. Village Bell Ringer enters the battlefield as a 1/1 flying balloon that untapped both our mana dork and our commander. And we can repeat the process to create more Village Bell Ringers. Alternatively, we can use the Jolly Balloon Man and Village Bell Ringer and Ashnod's Altar. Tap the Jolly Balloon Man to create a balloon copy of Village Bell Ringer, untapping our commander. We can now sacrifice the balloon to the altar to give us 2 colorless mana and repeat the loop. Because the altar gives us 2 mana, it means that we can create 2 tokens when doing the loop and only have to sacrifice one of them to generate 2 mana to continue. Think of our commander blowing up 2 balloons, but every 2 balloons, 1 explodes. Not to mention, if we happen to have one of our Purphoros type effects, it's just a game on the spot. If you want to power this deck up, we believe he can see some niche CDH high power versions by simply adding some tutors and cards like Dockside Extortionist, unlocking the possibility of our commander to also combo with cards like Umbral Mantle.
We hope you enjoyed this deck tech, and as always we would love to hear your opinion and what cards would you add to the deck. We are now on Patreon, so if you'd like to check it out, or the links are in the description below. Let's get ready for the spooky season, and see you soon!